Secretary of the Dundee Trade Union Council, Mike Arnott. Thanks for joining us today.
That's fine. Good to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Mike, you are experienced with some peace processes, which is the Scotland and same as Ireland and between the UK. So, first of all, let's start with. Can you give us a very brief history of Scotland and the struggle of Scottish people? How did the Scotland movement develop, and how did it came to these days?
Well, the situation with Scotland and our big neighbour goes back many hundreds of years. Scottish independence was eventually won in the 14th century. Some of your viewers might have seen the film Braveheart, which is an interesting interpretation of those times. But the general truth is that, Scotland became officially independent from England in the 14th century, and that carried on. And an interruption or a change of circumstances came in the 17th century when the Scottish royal families and the English royal family became one. So a Scottish king became the king of England and Scotland, and the crowns were united. And then at the beginning of the 18th century, there was a unity of the parliaments. So effectively, Scotland became part of what is now Great Britain. It was very much an uneven alliance, and it was unpopular with the Scottish people at the time. But over the years since then, there has been a growing movement towards a certainly devolution, which was achieved with the reintroduction of a separate Scottish Parliament at the end of the 20th century. And that has now developed in the last 25 years into a very active campaign for full independence from England and for Scotland to become, after more than 300 years, an independent country again.
Thank you so much, Mike. Also, you have mentioned about the film Braveheart. This film is a suggestion, one of the top films that Kurdish leader Mr. Öcalan suggests to his friends to watch always, according to the stories that we listen from his friends. So that's an important mention. Thanks for that. So Kurds has always taken the Scottish people's struggle for freedom as an example, same as Irish people's as well. So, what are the similarities and differences between these two communities and struggles? Of course, if the people who watched the Braveheart will be understand that answer, but if you can tell us very briefly, please.
I wouldn't claim that Scotland over the centuries has faced anything like the oppression that our Irish comrades have suffered at the hands of the English and then of the British once the British state came into being. I would claim that Ireland was treated much more as a colony, and the physical and military oppression of the Irish people has been much more severe than the situation for Scotland. Part of that was because Ireland was a Catholic country, and the oppression of the Catholic religion, certainly after the 16th century, saw Ireland very much under the boot of the Protestant English, particularly as it was feared that Ireland could become an ally to Catholic enemies in Europe, like Spain or France. So in terms of numbers, in terms of ferocity of oppression, our Irish comrades have suffered far more over the years than we have, but they at least achieved partial independence for what is now the Republic of Ireland over a century ago, after the Easter Rising in 1916. But of course, the north of Ireland, what's called Ulster, the 6 counties, was kept under British control. It was where the Protestant plantations had been established going back 400 years. So there was an English British loyal population in and around Belfast in the north of Ireland, and that has been again the root of much violence and antagonism over more recent times. But thankfully that seems to have gone into abeyance, and there's even talk now of Irish unity once again, potentially being on the agenda in future.
Mike, also, we will come to the topic about Kurdish leader Mr. Abdullah Öcalan's the importance of his freedom, but nowadays he is very limitedly available to send some messages to outside from Imrala Island, and we can clearly see that on each different message he also talks about the importance of Scottish model. So what is the Scottish model? What should we understand from this? How the Scotland been governing itself, and what is the relation with the Scotland and the UK integration? Because Öcalan also talks about the democratic integration. So what is this Scottish model? Could you please explain it to someone that has no idea about what is the Scottish model?
So in Scotland, we control within Scotland a number of areas of responsibilities: the health service, education, the legal system. Certain amounts of taxation are controlled in Scotland and voted on, and laws made at the Scottish Parliament. The Scottish Parliament is what's called a devolved parliament, and the powers that it uses are granted to it by the UK Parliament in Westminster. And that was all part of the devolution settlement at the very end of the 20th century. So we've been 25 years now operating with devolution. It allows Scotland to decide, as I said, on taxation. We've always had a separate legal and educational system, but Scotland runs the health service. It can run benefits. It can bring in additional children's benefits. Our medical prescriptions in Scotland are free, whereas they're not in England. Our students study at university for free. They don't pay fees, whereas students attending universities in England can pay up to and sometimes over £10,000 a year, and often leave after a degree tens of thousands of pounds in debt, which they subsequently have to pay off. So there are definite benefits.
And also I want to kids are taking the lessons in their mother language, which is in Scottish, which is beautiful, right?
Oh, the Gaelic language is very much depressed in numbers from where it was 300 years ago, where it was widespread, particularly along the north of Scotland. It has been much more supported by the Scottish Parliament. The introduction of the Parliament has enabled the Gaelic language to be encouraged. I think probably more can be done. In Dundee, certainly where I'm from, there's very little Gaelic language, but there are areas in the north and west of the country, and in the big cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh, where there is a resurgence in the Gaelic language. So it's something important about our culture, about our heritage, which the Scottish Parliament has definitely made a difference to, and has allowed to develop more. I wouldn't say it's flourishing yet. It's starting from a very low base, but there is an emphasis on the language, which we wouldn't have had if we were still, if we didn't have devolution and everything was still run through Westminster.
Thank you, Mike. That was very briefly and very perfectly explained Scotland history. So, to close down this topic, could you please explain us why do you think Kurdish leader Mr. Abdullah Öcalan is keep talking about the Scottish model? What should the Kurds understand from this, from the perspective of a Scottish trade unionist?
It's a model which actually many in Scotland now are saying we should move beyond that to full independence. But that's our situation, and that's the feelings we have. Currently, just over 50% of people want independence. And when it was voted on in 2014, it was narrowly lost by about 5%, 45 to 55. So there's still a feeling for that. But within the old settlement, it's an improvement because it allows much more time to pass legislation affecting Scotland for our own people. It allows a greater focus. It allows our own politicians to be able to identify policies with a specific Scottish identity and to prioritize issues. As I said, prescription medicines being free, higher education at universities being free. It allows us to develop and bring in our own priorities and to have them for the Scottish people, which wouldn't have been the case before. For a situation in as far as Comrade Ocalan and the Kurdish people, it's a model. It's one of many. We're very close to the situation. We're aware of what happens in the Basque country in Spain and in Catalonia in Spain, where there are well-developed national groups with language and cultural differences within the country of Spain, where their regional governments have allowed the same cultural expressions and political expressions to develop within the context of Spain. But again, in both those countries, in the Basque country and in Catalonia, there are loud and strong expressions to go the next step and to claim themselves independence.
Thank you, dear Mike. We have like a couple of minutes left, so I would like to also ask about the Kurdish problems roots is coming from basically in Turkey that they don't exist in the constitutional part. So the Kurds are now asking for a constitutional rights, and to make this happen, basically they are asking Öcalan's possible conditions to work on this peace process, and the peace process still continues. When we look at last year, the PKK has disarmed, burned the arms, and it's step by step the DEM party also taking positive steps. So there is lots of positive steps from the Kurdish side, but we can't see many from the Turkey side. So what do you think Turkey is trying to do in this peace process, and what is your call to Turkey to take it more seriously and with more concrete positive steps forward?
Obviously, the Kurdish experience in dealing with the Turkish government has varied over many years. I remember 20 years ago where there was talk of the potential for Kurdish language to be accepted by the Turkish government, Kurdish culture, and then that all changed. And again, it was there was a form of oppression, of subjugation of the Kurdish culture bought in. And it depends on the Turkish government in as much as how important it is for them to peddle the line of nationalism and unity in a Turkish context, which will, by its very implications, impact on its tolerance and its allowance of rights to minorities within the Turkish borders. We're seeing similar things in Syria just now, where Kurdish interests in Syria are facing attack due to sectarian groups on religious and nationalist lines finding some sort of comfort from the new Syrian government. The attacks on the Christian city just last week is an indication of increasing sectarianism and inter community violence, which is the opposite of what Öcalan and the Kurdish people have been following in recent times. The idea of international solidarity, of unity, progressive unity between communities, and for women in Kurdistan, and by extension in Turkey. So if that comes against a more aggressive stance from the Turkish government, they might be less willing to concede. It doesn't affect our belief in this country in the rights of Kurdish people to self-expression, to their culture, to democratic and political rights. But the attitude of the Turkish government might not be agreeing to that, depending on the changing demands and needs of the regime in Turkey.
Thank you, Mike. Lastly, shortly, briefly, anything I didn't ask, anything you would like to add on? Also, most of the people are now talking about the Öcalan's status, what it should be. Also, on his messages, we can clearly see that he's also is asking for his status to be more clear, so he can continue to work on the peace process. Of course, this depends also right to hope, and as well as the freedom of Öcalan. So in this perspective, please have your last words.
Yeah, our support for Öcalan and his release and his being brought into the political process on the Kurdish issue in Turkey does not change. His approach, his arguments for a progressive, anti-sectarian, pro-women unified approach, ignoring racism, ignoring sectarianism, and building people together, is one we will continue to support because it's progressive, it's positive, and it's the kind of politics we share ourselves. So that support for Öcalan will never change, and our wish to see increased rights and increased democracy and acceptance within Turkey for the Kurdish people will not change. We stand with the Kurdish people, we stand with Abdullah Öcalan, and that will not change. Our job is to persuade our government and our politicians over here to take a stance when dealing with Turkey that should support and put pressure on the Turkish government to make concessions to Kurdistan and to peace and to the status of Abdullah Öcalan.
Thank you so much, Mike Arnott, Secretary of the Dundee Trade Union Council. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your valuable comments, as always.
No problem, Aaron.
Thank you.